All right, and I'm just letting the attendees filter in. Thank you all for being here, steering committee members, planning board subcommittee members, consultants, members of the public. We had a great meeting about a month ago, and thanks for coming back for our second master plan steering committee meeting. And now I will turn it over, Michael Sullivan or Elaine, if you want to get started.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. Good to see you again on the big screen, small screen, however you are watching. Today we are going to follow up with some of our items from the last steering committee meeting. And we're going to talk about the economic and marketing survey work that's underway and the status of that. And that's going to be Joe Getz. And that will lead into the discussion and demonstration of the social pinpoint engagement hub. And Liz Ward from Susan Blickstein's office is going to take us through that. And that's really the agenda for today. And then we can follow up with any questions after their discussions and presentations. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Joe.
I can't unmute. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. So the work that we have performed so far has to do with interviews with stakeholders and with merchants, and those were done first to help formulate the questions for the survey. So I'll pass it off to Mark if he can give us just a brief update on where we are with those interviews.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. As Joe says, the interviews were with stakeholders and with merchants. You members of the steering committee gave us lists of people you identified as stakeholders. We have contacted and interviewed all of the people on that stakeholder list, but for a couple who did not respond to our outreach. In addition, we added some other stakeholders who we thought and some others thought maybe should be added. We reached out to you for authorization for that. So all told, we've spoken with about 40 people that were stakeholders, that are your stakeholders. In addition to that, 2 weeks ago, we started visiting merchants and commercial property owners in Princeton, all over in the Central Business District, at the Princeton Shopping Center, and in other parts like the State Road, North 206. And we contacted 32 of those, all of the businesses that were on your list, and we added more than a half dozen additional ones. We were trying to make sure we had a good balance of different types of businesses that were represented, vendors of services, vendors of goods, and food oriented vendors. So we still have a few stakeholder interviews remaining, and we're still waiting to collect some additional merchant interviews. So we're not prepared to talk about conclusions from any of the data we've collected from those folks, but we're getting very close to that point.
Great.
Okay,
and Mark and Joe, so the steering committee members haven't seen any sort of schedule yet for what this whole process is going to look like, because we're still working on that. Can you kind of explain why this economic development piece has been front loaded and is kind of moving at the pace it is?
Well, it's actually, Justin, it's actually moving at a pretty normal pace for this kind of program. The work that we do is actually a trademarked process called Community Insights that we developed, I don't even remember, 15 years ago or so. And the process takes a few weeks to do the surveys, and then you use that information to formulate. It takes a few weeks to do the interviews, and then you use that information to formulate your survey questions to make sure that you're addressing any hot topics that we heard from these people. And then the survey takes, once it's actually written and programmed and launched, in a good month, it takes 4 weeks. In a bad month, it takes 6 weeks to get the number of responses that you want. So in terms of timing on it, we are now programming the survey and expect that it will become live on July the 5th is our target date. We, through, I guess, Elaine, will be in contact with you about putting out the lawn signs on the various locations that we've selected and doing other kinds of outreach to start getting responses from that. There was a timeline that was put out in the beginning of this process, and I think we are about 14 days behind where we thought we would be. It's not the end of the world. We have extra time, as we said, built in for gathering the survey responses. And if it goes as it normally goes, we will be right on schedule within 4 or 5 weeks. The purpose of this was to try and find out, the key purpose of this exercise was to try and find out who your economic audience really is, because the audience is not the people who live within the boundaries of the municipality of Princeton. They certainly are a portion of it, but there are people who come here to work and play and study and walk down Nassau Street and wherever else, who live outside of here. And in identifying what the economic potential is for the community, you need to know where all of those economic players are coming from. So that's really what the purpose of this is, to figure out what your trade area is as opposed to your municipal boundaries. Once we get through the survey, which we said could wrap up as early as the first week in August, between then and the middle of August, then we have enough data to understand what do stakeholders think, what do merchants think, what do consumers think, and where do they all come from. And then we can take that and start applying it to census data and economic data to help us answer key questions like, what is the market potential? What is your current capture rate? What is it that you have that people don't like? What is it that you don't have that people want here? And those sorts of things. And that only takes a few weeks to get through that part. So I don't know if that answers your questions, Justin, on about the timeline.
Yeah, it definitely does. And just, to be clear to the steering committee members who are still kind of figuring out what their role is and might be thinking things are moving forward already, and I'm not even sure what I'm here to do. This trademark process is a little different than what's going on for the majority of the plan.
Yeah, what this will do is provide a foundation of factual information for the steering committee and for CCH and so to make informed decisions about the economic side of it.
Great, thanks, Joe. And it looks like Kristen has her hand up.
Thanks, Justin. So, and it follows along the line of trying to figure out what we're doing. So thank you for saying that, Justin. So I'm trying to figure out what we're doing here. So a comment was made about the fact that this group was asked to provide names for these interviews. I must have missed an email because I was asked to help with my institution, but I was never asked for my opinion about who others are in the community. So I'm thinking there was a different group other than this steering committee that created that list, or else I missed a whole series of emails.
Yeah, I could clear that up. The planning board chair and I made that list, and then some others came out of those interviews. So yeah.
And then am I correct to understand then that there's some sort of major survey work that's going to be launched on July 5th? Am I correct? And it's going to go until about August 1st? And we expect in one of the months when lots and lots of people take vacation, and I can tell you the traffic in town, albeit a little congested because of construction, is a little difficult. I mean, I'm going to offer my concern about doing that survey work. It's sort of like when we tried to do survey work of Princeton University students a week before they left and were taking exams. So I'm just concerned about how robust that work will be given the timing.
Well, the short answer to the question is, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for, 15, 20, 30 years. The short answer to the question is we have goals set up for how many responses we want to get. To be statistically valid, we need 405. To make us feel comfortable, we need 1,200, 1,500. We have done these in similar circumstances. In fact, the one we did in Glassboro with Rowan University was done actually over the summer months, and I think we got about 3,300 responses. The outreach program for this survey, for the consumer survey, includes social media, it includes press releases, it includes lawn signs, it includes signage in public gathering spaces and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty robust outreach program. I'm comfortable that people, even if they live here but are not in the community during the period of the survey, will hear about it over the 6-week period and will have the opportunity to participate because it's online. So you don't need to be in Princeton to take the survey. We'll monitor the numbers. In fact, we monitor them day by day. So we'll know exactly whether we're on a path to meet our goals or not. And if we are not on a path to meet our goals, we always have the Plan B option. As you mentioned, the Princeton University survey, when we got all the approvals and went to launch it, we weren't able to get it launched early enough to capture those students before they left. So we went to Plan B. Drop back position, we're going to capture them in the fall when they come back. I just want to assure you that in large part the work that we're doing right now, the analysis, is really a standalone component. So it doesn't harm the CCH process or anything like that if we do it this month or next month. But we'd like to be out ahead of this and have the information for foundation. So I'm comfortable with it. We've been doing it a lot of years. We have had one time where we didn't get responses that we wanted, and that was in a community that was not nearly as engaged as Princeton. In fact, it was in a community that wasn't as nearly as engaged in the other hundreds of towns we've worked in. But I'm very comfortable and confident that what we're doing will get us the results that we want. And like I said, we'll monitor and keep an eye on it and let you know if for any reason there's a problem with it.
I just think it's for the overall legitimacy of this process that it's critical that we don't have large parts of our community that feel that somehow this information was gathered at a time of the year when people weren't paying attention or given the opportunity. So I'm glad to hear that there's a variety of modes and methods that will be used to outreach, et cetera. I think it's critical to the overall legitimacy of the process that people feel that they're included and that this was done at a time when engagement was requested. So
yeah, again, we've done these over holiday seasons. You do them when you have to do them, and you take the steps that you have to take to make sure that you get the outreach. We know that during traditional vacation periods, we're losing somewhere between 8 and 12% of the audience on any given week. This is running over a 6-week period. We did one not too many years ago in Beach Haven, which talk about difficulty in trying to get a hold of people who don't live here. We don't know where they live. They're coming into town. We have to capture them while they're here. The inverse works as well, finding all the people who lived in Beach Haven who flee during the summer when the tourists show up. So I really don't have a concern about it. If for any reason something looks like it's going wrong, we'll know early, and there are alternatives to it, and we'll let you know if anything like that happens, but I don't expect it to be a problem.
Great. Thanks, Joe, and thank you, Kristen. I see some hands up, but I kind of cut in when Mark and Joe were talking. Is there anything that you two would like to finish on before we hear some questions?
I don't think I have anything extra, Mark.
I'd just like to thank everyone who has already participated as an interview subject that's here today. Thanks a lot for your help.
Great. And so will you take some questions now related to the study and the survey?
Yeah, if you can. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I see Sam, Councilman Cohen, and then Phil.
I'm going to go ahead, Justin, if that's okay with you. I have 2 questions. First of all, what are the names of the people who were contacted for the stakeholder meetings? Is that going to be published?
Yes, that'll be part of our report. notify everyone that we spoke with.
Okay. And then my second point is just I have to back up what Kristen was saying. It just seems completely kind of crazy to me that we would be conducting a survey effort in the summer, and clearly, the entire student population, which makes up a major customer base for the downtown business area, is going to be absent in the month of July. So it's just completely the wrong time to be attempting to do a survey that is going to be representative. And it may be the case that the number of survey responses drops by 8 to 12%, but it's likely that the number of student responses will drop by 80 or 90%. So by running the survey at this time of year, you're almost guaranteed to get a non-representative outcome. I'm just really kind of surprised that it's gotten this far that we would even consider doing something like this, which is so obviously not right. It's you don't do things like this in Princeton. Conduct major business during the month of July. There's no possibility that it's going to be a representative survey. So the plan B is clearly going to become the plan A, in which case, just stop what we're doing and wait until the fall and do it then.
This isn't a student survey. There is a separate student survey. There's a student survey and there's a consumer survey. And the student survey was the one we tried to do in May, and we weren't able to get the notifications out on it in time. So that will be done in September when they return. This is a consumer survey.
But in what sense is a student not a consumer? I mean, why would you even draw that distinction?
I didn't say a student's not a consumer. I said there's a separate survey to ask other questions of students.
Why?
Because students behave differently than other consumers. And there are things we'd like to know about student behavior that we don't have to ask of other consumers.
And I think in line with that, nothing's preventing a student from taking the consumer survey.
No.
Those are just more targeted to students. Questions about what grade level and things like that you wouldn't see elsewhere. And Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, just a real quick question.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have goals in terms of the breakdown of the number of responses you're looking to receive? In other words, I heard you say, 1,400 or whatever the total, but do you want to get some fraction of those from Princeton residents versus from people who are outside Princeton? And are there any other groups besides Princetonians and people from outside Princeton that you're also trying to, get a representative sample from?
Yes. There's a question in the survey that allows the respondent to identify themselves. I live here. I work here. I drive through on my way elsewhere. I attend classes or have family and friends who go to Princeton University. Those sorts of things. So that question will allow us to segment the responses. And again, as I said, in an ideal world, we'd like to get a minimum of 405 responses from residents, 405 from non-residents, 405 from people who work here but don't live here, or so on and so forth. It's really not been the challenge that I'm hearing concerns about. We're comfortable that we're going to make the numbers, and we're comfortable that we're going to get a good distribution that will allow us to segment those groups out and have valid responses from them.
Thanks.
Okay.
And Phil?
Yeah, I have two questions, and the first one's related to what David just said. Are you gathering demographic information on your survey just to make sure the minority population's captured? I think as an Asian, I think our voice tends not to be heard in the community.
Yeah.
And Asians do comprise 17% of Princeton's population. So I do hope in your survey work you make sure the sample properly represents all minority groups.
Again, we can influence and make people aware of the survey. We can't force certain people to take a survey. It's always done by choice. That said,
But
last month,
your efforts should address and try to reach
oh
those
yeah,
populations, right?
absolutely,
Okay.
they will. And last month we had said typically we don't ask questions about ethnicity, but it was a concern here. So we said, all right, we're going to add a question and make sure that we do capture that. So we will be capturing an ethnicity breakout. It actually turns out to be among many of the other demographic questions we're asking. We would be happy to reach out to you and make sure that we conduct outreach to the community to make sure we get in there and that the Asian population is aware of it and has an opportunity to respond to it. So we do want to
Okay.
hear them, and we are
All right.
taking those steps.
And then I guess my related question is, in your initial interviews with stakeholders, were there any kind of ethnic organizations you reached out to?
Mark?
Were you given a list of, like the Hispanic with or Black representation, Asian representation?
Well, understand we weren't speaking to people in terms of organizational representation, but I can tell you it was a very diverse set of interviewees that we spoke with, and people of variety of races, obviously both genders, different age groups, property owners, merchants, civic leaders. So, but no, in terms of association with an ethnic organization, no, I don't believe that was part of it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Satterfield?
Yes, I didn't have my question up as fast as Phil did, but my question was the same as Phil's. And if you are making a distinction, is it going to be written on there whether you're Asian or African American or Hispanic, or how would you know who's taking the survey?
Yeah, the question itself, the possible answers are white, Black, American Indian, Asian / Pacific Islander, Hispanic, or other. And we use those categories specifically because they tie back to the census data that's available.
Christine?
I understand part of our responsibility as steering committee members is to ask questions like this, but it's also to contribute to making an effort like a survey successful. So will you be giving us what is it you need of us to help sure you get the minimum amount of participation that you want and make sure that it is representative and there are responses from the community groups that Phil and Shirley have talked about? What do you need of us to make sure that it is successful?
We have sent forward an outreach plan. Well, first off, let me just clarify for everybody. This is a consumer survey and its purpose is economic development. And I don't want to confuse you because Susan's group is going to be doing additional surveys and other outreach. And that is different from us. Our focus is predominantly economic development. But that said, we have forwarded an outreach plan that talks about email blast and outreach to community organizations and those sorts of things. I would prefer not to distribute it right now because the survey's not live. And the danger we have found with the consumer survey is as soon as you say to somebody, this survey's here, they go. If that website's not live, we maybe don't get them back again. And we don't want to have that possibility. But Justin has seen, CCH has signed off on the outreach program. And again, it will involve directly reaching out to any of those organizations that you want to make sure are aware of this and have the opportunity to participate in it. And that will all break within a few days after the survey going live.
And we'll be using the municipality's social media and website and newsletter to send out things like this. So I know a lot of other groups also will, I'm thinking specifically about Sustainable Princeton's newsletter, will sometimes take links from that or information from that and we'd love it if other groups helped.
The one other comment on that too is it's also going out to, I think you have about 7 newspapers, which congratulations to you, because we generally work in towns where they have none. And we also have press releases, which we had not mentioned before. And there are, I think, 2 or 3 press releases that go out over the life of the consumer survey. Anything that the committee thinks will help bolster participation, we'd love to hear. And if we can accommodate it, we absolutely will.
Great. And Councilman Cohen?
I don't want to spend too much time talking about what all's on the survey, but is there a sort of a catch-all question where you invite people to share any other thoughts they have that are not covered by specific questions on the survey?
Yeah, yes, sir, there is. There's actually 2. No, that's not true. There's actually about 5 or 6 open-ended questions. One of them is what type of stores would they like to see? One is what type of entertainment? One is one type of, but there are 2 specific questions. One has to do with housing issues. We ask some questions about their preferences, and then we have an open-ended question at the end that says, what have we not asked you about? It's important for it to be considered. And then there's a similar question, let me get to it, just as Princeton plans for its future, are there any additional issues that you think should be considered? And that's at the end of the survey after we've asked them. But basically, our questions deal with their demographics, obviously, but their behaviors, their preferences, and their perceptions as it relates to economic development. So once we get through all that, then there is an open-ended question to allow them to tell us something that we've missed. And as I said before, we monitor this day by day by day. So if on day 3, everybody's coming back and saying, you forgot to ask us about, whatever issue, it's a good catch-all that will allow us to recover and add a question because we can add questions as the survey goes forward. We'd only miss those responses that we had, the 10 people who had taken it already, kind of thing. But yes, that question is there.
Great.
Great. And just to wrap this up, Joe, can you just discuss how long it would take someone to fill out this survey?
It's actually less than 10 minutes. It is 36 questions all in. Most of them are multiple choice. The open-ended ones, as I said, for an example, there's a multiple choice question for ethnicity. You check the box. There's one for household income. You check the block. In terms of level of satisfaction with, conditions in Princeton, you check the box. It's a Likert question, so it allows you to actually rank it. And then the open-ended questions are what kind of stores, what kind of restaurants, what kind of entertainment, the housing, and is there anything that we missed? But about 9 minutes is what it's taking us so far when we test it. So I don't think it'll be a problem.
Great. Thanks. And thank you to Joe and Mark of the JGSC group. And I'll turn it back over to Michael Sullivan.
We're going to excuse ourselves if that's okay.
Sure. Yep.
Is that all right?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Thank you.
And the next component of the engagement strategy we're going to talk about is the social pinpoint, the engagement hub, and how that's coming together. Liz Ward's going to walk you through that and give you a little demonstration.
Thank Michael, you, y'all are a little hard to hear, so if you could speak loudly and clearly, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I love technology. So the next component of our public engagement hour is going to be conducted by Liz Ward, who's going to show you how the engagement hub through Social Pinpoint, which is their brand, is going to operate and look and feel.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is the landing homepage for our Princeton Master Plan website. It's the URL will be princeton.com, my social pinpoint with /master plans. If this is a draft, it's always going to be evolving. It's not static. As you can see, we want the upcoming events to be front and center. So when people land on the page, they know what's coming next. As you can see, we have the steering committee meeting up today. Tomorrow we're gonna have to change that, right? So we just wanted to show you how that looks, and people will be able to click on that and go to the meetings and events page. And this will, as events get scheduled, all we have right now is that we're looking to launch the first community visioning survey in September. So that will be when people are back from summer vacations. And as the details of that are developed, we'll fill this in. But nothing will get lost. We'll make sure that it's all the meetings and events that have occurred are recorded here, and we'll have links to YouTube videos, meeting minutes, other related documents as they're developed that relate to the events and meetings. So it will all be transparent and available. And what we're really hoping to do once this goes live and is announced and launched is to get people to register for updates. So we had a very short survey where we're asking people to give optional name, but their email address, connection to Princeton, what, the demographics, gender identity, and age. And then, just to help us as we move along in this process, kind of get an idea of how they are currently finding out what's going on in the community. So when we are ready to promote and announce all of the events in the fall, I think that people, we make an effort to inform them through how they currently are finding out what's going on in the community. So yeah, as part of this, for the promotion of the website, with the demographic information in this little short form, we can kind of get an idea if we are targeting, the representation of the residents of Princeton. And then we have started developing a community organization list. I know people in the previous discussion mentioned that. So that's something I think we could probably share with the steering committee after the meeting and get your input on what organizations should be included. So that will really, that's just for the email blasts and, making people aware of that the website's up, register for updates. And then I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty bare bones, but we want to keep it really legible and clear. We have the about, just a little bit of the project timeline. This, as the dates are filled out, we'll add more information as it comes. Let everyone know that the master plan has all these different elements. And as information, like I said, is developed, we will put the information up onto the website. The project team lists all of the steering committee members, as well as the subcommittee members with the consultant team at the bottom. So that's more or less the information right now. We do have, we started developing a draft sort of graphic that people can share and promote to their Facebook, to their Instagram. This is all draft right now, but we just wanted to show you our plan at the moment is to include English, Spanish, and Chinese on all of the outreach materials. We have members of our team that speak each of those languages, so it's easy for us to translate those materials. As well as show you one of the really great things about Social Pinpoint is that there's Google Translate, and you can translate the website into any language, and it translates all the pages. Oh, I guess, yeah, there you go. So that's sort of where we are. The goal for this summer is to be building out our email list and building out the organization list. So so when it comes fall, we're really ready to start planning and getting the word out about all the other engagement opportunities. Michael, Elaine, is there anything else you want me to share on this? Or Justin?
No, I don't have anything else. Michael?
Yeah, I've just, Liz, could you, I know we don't have any mapping up yet on this, but can you explain to the committee how, the pinpoints and the pins are gonna work? Can you, I know we don't have it graphically yet, but can you explain how that works for folks who may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's all within the website. So people won't need to go to another website. So there'll be the maps. I wish I had a good example to show you of a my social pinpoint mapping exercise. And we can share better examples. It's sort of hard to explain, but it's really intuitive. It's, mapping that everyone's seen and used. We can, use a Google base. We can turn things on and off so people can see other people's comments or not see other people's comments, depending on the question. There are abilities to, if someone says like, I would really like to see a bike lane here or something, we can let people, they can like that comment. So depending on how many likes it gets, like there's layers and layers of input that can, that you can layer on top of each other, or that could all be turned off because we don't want to influence other people's decisions, right? So, when we develop that first survey and we, decide which questions we want to use, that's when, the thoughts of how much we want to be public or private will kind of get decided.
But the larger point is that, the website functions not just in, text and verbal, but it integrates mapping and visual data and spatial, for lack of a better term, that people can use to input, and then it can be aggregated so that we can understand how many people are saying X and who's saying
right.
Y.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, right. It's all on the website. You don't have, it could be embedded within this page. So like when people, when the survey's up, it can be right here. Like this will move because we'll, build our database. Upcoming events could move down, and it could all be right here. So people see it, and then yeah, you can have it analyzed at any time. So that's, we could either allow that function or keep that internal. So, we could be monitoring the website and see, when we get a bump of information, or to make sure that the demographics are representative of all populations. So, then we can target different groups to make sure that they're seeing the survey and filling it out. But yes, it's all integrated. And it's really intuitive and legible and accessible.
And so I'm sorry. And so when folks sign up for the website with the initial just tell me about yourself survey and sign up here for updates, when we update, if let's say we ask new questions or we update information, then they would automatically get notified that this happened. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. If we would send them an update. So, we wouldn't, when we launch the survey, right? Or if we would send them an update, or when the open houses are scheduled, we'd send them an update. Yeah. So, we don't want to, over abuse our register for updates, but when, they're signing up because they want to know and be involved. So yeah, we will send updates to these individuals as needed.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, our overarching goal is to get people to this website and to the meetings to gain their input, but we'll still be using our municipal resources too. So if you're used to going to, the municipal calendar to find a planning board meeting or a recreation committee meeting, we'll still list the events on there, or maybe it'll be a bubble on the front page of princetonnj.gov to direct you to here to find out about our open houses. And we also just, council passed a resolution for a new software we're excited about called Zen City that'll list a variety of different projects. So you might go on that website, or someone else might go on that website and, just to find out when the Witherspoon project is happening. And they might see that the master plan meeting is coming up, and that'll direct them to this page. So we're really going to throw everything at the wall to get that outreach and get people involved. And I see 2 hands up right now. Liz, would you like to take questions, or is there something else here? Yeah. So I see Councilman Cohen first, and then Alvin.
So Liz, I think you said when this website goes live, but I actually went and signed up. So is it live or?
Well, it's live in the sense that it is published, but if you don't have the URL,
okay,
then it's not promoted yet.
You can't search for it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that's great. And I'll start promoting it.
David, this is Michael Sullivan. That's cheating, by the way.
Is it good cheating or bad cheating?
It's good.
The other question I had is, you had a question about how you get information or how you like to be contacted. I don't think you had text as an option. Is there a reason why that wouldn't also be offered? I know some people, sort of prefer to get texts than emails.
Yeah, I'm glad you looked at it. I think we can add that, and I think we can send texts through my social pinpoint. I'll have to verify that, but I'm pretty sure we can. So I'll put that on our to-do list. That's a good idea.
Great, thanks.
And Alvin?
Hi, small matter, personal. You're misspelling my last name. I'm an E-N, not an A-N.
Of
That's all.
course, that's not small. We will make sure that we correct that. I apologize.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Down here. Yeah. Yeah, not Ann. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Louise?
Another small thing, on the homepage, can the title be, or there one, yeah. Welcome to the Princeton Community Master Plan website.
I think that's suggested.
Ours is called the Community Master Plan.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually, because, we only saw this yesterday, so a lot of things here are still kind of fluid. I was hoping there would be kind of an even better thing to put in there, but I couldn't think of it. So if anyone had any updates on just to let people know that this is going on right now, rather than, maybe they think this is the master plan we've had or anything like that. So, I'll welcome any and all of those comments. And really, I'm reaching out for help on that one right now because I have writer's block.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I can put this in the chat. Then if everybody. Is there a chat?
That's disabled.
Oh, yes. I'm like, when I'm sharing my screen and I'm hunting around. But maybe we can also send an email with this link so you can look at it and send your comments. Like we said, it's an evolving process. So.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We're starting out in the informational phase, then we're going into the outreach phase, and then finally the final product. And the website's going to follow along those lines too. So I see Ms. Satterfield has her hand up.
Yes, where it says, tell us about you and stay informed. I don't know if I could say that's 2 entities, but it sounds like if you don't tell us about yourself, you won't stay informed. Can that be 2 different sentences, or can it be worded differently? Tell us about you and stay informed. That's 2 different thoughts.
Yes. We could word that differently. We are asking, we want people to give us a little bit of demographic information in order
Right.
to register.
Yeah, I'm not saying get rid of any of it. It's just that if it could be worded differently, because the two seem like two different things.
Right.
Tell us about yourself and then stay informed.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
We'll wordsmith that as
We'll
well.
work on it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. And I see Louise, your hand back up. Yes.
Yeah,
No.
I just wondering about distinguishing clearly between this community survey and the survey that Joe Getz and his group are conducting over the summer. And I think the comments about timing and all are very well taken, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of response he has. But I'm just concerned about the possibility of people having filled out one survey thinking, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
And just make, you know, whether there's any overlap in the questions or whether there would be a link between the two, or
Yeah, at the end of Joe's survey, there is a link. I think it goes straight to, you know, to this form from his survey. So, you know, people that complete that survey are then automatically can sign up for the community survey, which will be happening in the fall.
Great. So if there's no other questions, Michael, do you want to keep us moving?
Yeah, that is really the bulk of what we want to talk about today. The follow-up and the things that are coming up next are we're going to be polishing up the website. We're going to try to get the social pinpoint locked in, at least in the top part, so that we have our language correct in the top and make sure it's identified correctly. So that other things may change, but the top doesn't change. We want it to have the same appearance so people don't think they're going to another place. The survey, Justin, we are working with Justin on the community survey, the broad visioning survey questions. That is expected to go live in September, which is separate from the consumer survey. And we are also continuing to develop the base information, you know, existing land use, working with the municipality and getting the data. We're still gathering data regarding the municipality and articulating the previous master plans and studies that have been done as the baseline for the work we're doing on the master plan. So that's where we're at. And we hope to be back with the website launch ready to go next week, and the survey, so consumer survey.
Great, thanks, Michael. And for this group's benefit, when should they expect to see finalized dates for what they're expected through these remaining steering committee meetings, as well as those open houses, and ultimately kind of a final, you know, adoption period?
Yeah, well, we had a draft schedule. We're working on the schedule. The schedule we're projecting out right now about 3 to 4 months with the open houses and the community engagement that's really going to take place at the beginning of the fall. And we're pretty clear on that. After we get through that, it's a little less firm, but we'll be working on that and getting that out in the next month.
Great.
We're excited to see how the progress on the surveys goes and see how we do with participation in those. So.
Great. Yeah. And I thank you for all of you for being with us, and for, you know, right now the information's trickling out, but I think there's a method to the madness that's going to make sense once you see those dates. And it looks like we have a few more minutes. I see Mr. Quinn's hand up, followed by Ms. Wilson. So I think there's a great time for questions if CCH and Susan G. Blickstein's group can stay on.
Thanks, Justin and all. When the website goes live and we're trying to get people to sign up, will you be providing us with sort of an elevator speech type of document that we can use, or do you want us to riff on our own? I personally think that it would be good if we all had some basic framework, but if we all weren't necessarily, the downside is that we'd all sound like robots if we parroted the same thing. But I think it's important to sort of set the expectations for people who are inviting in there.
Okay.
Maybe, Liz, do you have anything you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of content on the website, the homepage now, that you could probably, use about the master plan, that, it's a community's blueprint for the future. It's a year-long process. We really want community involvement. So some of that text could probably be your elevator speech at the moment. But it will get more detailed as we get more detailed. But I think that the text that's there could sort of gives an idea of the master plan and how it guides decisions for land use and development and growth, and in which of all the elements that the municipality will be undertaking as part of their master plan.
We can get you something in black and white, Mr. Quinn and everyone else.
It'd be great. Thanks, Justin.
Yep, you're welcome. Louise?
Thanks. Will we see the survey questions before the surveys go live? I think somebody asked that question earlier. I just want to revisit it and have some sense of certainty about it.
Which one are you referring to? Just generally the 3 surveys that are intended?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the answer to that. Michael, do you know in other communities how you've done that just based on scheduling?
Well, it's both ways. If there's going to be a review of the survey questions, and there's an interest in doing that, normally we work with the municipal staff on those things. But if folks want to see it and they want to have input, then that could be done too.
Yeah, and working so far on the first one, there's been rounds and rounds of edits on it. So I think just for the sake of moving forward, we'll probably keep that internal, but share the general questions if that works for the group. And I'm seeing Christine with your hand up next.
My question is for Nick and anyone else in the steering committee that may have worked on the racial equity toolkit. I think it would be a really good idea to try to use that in some fashion throughout this process. We've tried to use it at Sustainable Princeton as a guiding document in our work. Nick, if you want to talk about that, I'd like to know if that's somehow we can use it as a group and guide us through the efforts when it comes to the community outreach.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly share a link to it. It's on it should be on the Princeton Civil Rights Commission website. But yeah, I think it should be considered and reviewed and see if there's anything that might be relevant within the toolkit that would apply here.
Great. I'll definitely share that with the Blickstein group. I know they were looking at other tools, but I think the more we could use ones that are with community expertise, the better the final product will be. And do we have any other questions? I see, Councilman Cohen, you had your virtual hand up.
Yeah, and I took it down by accident. I just wanted to weigh in and say that I think it'd be great to share the questions for the surveys in general with this group. I think, 90% of the group might not even look at them, but you're going to definitely get 4 or 5 people, are going to look at them from time to time, and you might get some good suggestions. So it doesn't seem like there's a real downside to letting the steering committee weigh in. I think there could be some good ideas.
Fair enough. Good.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, especially since I do believe that, to answer the question that was asked earlier about the survey questions for the economic development survey, I think those were vetted by the master plan steering committee, since it predated the establishment of the steering committee. And I think that, speaking personally, that members of the master plan subcommittee had some excellent input into the questions. I think it's probably a worthwhile exercise to keep this steering committee in mind.
Great, we could do that, definitely. Do we have any other questions before we wrap up this meeting? I sent out that to see when everyone's standing availability was, and we found that the 4th Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m., which is actually this time period, was the one that worked the best for everyone. Michael, do we have an idea of when the next one of these meetings might be? I know we discussed maybe not meeting for the next 2 summer months.
Well, yeah, we did talk about that. It really depends on, so the thing that we do want to get the survey locked down. So depending on how that process is going to go, that I don't know whether that needs a full committee meeting or whether that can be.
We could do that virtually.
We could do it virtually or internally, that the questions can be vetted and get back to us without having the full meeting. Then I would say that might work better, because I think that's that's the thing that's on the agenda that we have to get done. And we want to make sure that that works. But I don't know that we need a meeting to do that. It can happen without a meeting. So I'd rather save the meeting for more substantive stuff than more of a workshop or working group for that. I see Mr. Cohen shaking his head. Yes, I think. Okay, there we go. So yes, so I think that most likely the next need to meet would be in as we're going into the college survey, the Princeton survey, at the towards the end of the summer, August, September.
Okay. All right, great. I will be in touch with all this information and as it evolves. It's 3 p.m., so I want to be cognizant of everyone's time here. Thank you all for being here again and for being on this journey. I know we're moving slow, but we're building the foundation now and working behind the scenes on top of these meetings. So I think things are going well and will continue to go well.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Justin. All right.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everybody.
Here.